So it looks like everyone's still standing strong, second half of day 2, and hopefully getting a lot out of the last 2 days together. I introduced myself, I think, yesterday, but I'll do it again. Art Silva, and I have 2 hats here this week. One is proudly to be on the committee for MyIC for the event itself, and also a part of Schneider Electric's solutions, IoT, and industrial segment focus and area of the business. And in a moment, I'll be introducing our keynote speaker coming up next. But Tony and I had a great conversation, and Tony was kind enough to ask me to just share a few thoughts based on our conversation and some of the things that we see, I guess, in common in terms of this landscape of IoT and IIoT. So we talked about 3 things, and I'll just share for a few minutes and then bring Tony up on stage to share his keynote with us. We talked about 3 things. We talked about where we're at in the journey, let's say. We talked about the necessity of the ecosystem behind all that we do, and everyone in this room has an understanding of that. And we also talked a bit about value. So following our conversation, again, Tony said, just share a few thoughts from our mutual perspective and also, of course, from Schneider's experience. So just a couple of things. From a journey perspective, and it's been really interesting to hear all of the content and presentations and discussions yesterday and today. I think it's clear that 2 years ago, and many have shared it, maybe we were in this mode of hype, right? And we've certainly gone past the hype. There are real use cases. The test beds are incredible for anybody who hasn't spent the time exploring. And if you walk around, you can see there are real use cases. The value is clear. But I believe, and Tony and I think had this in common, is there's still a huge opportunity in front of us, right? The value that's going to be extracted, we're all trying to put numbers against it. But I think from an industrial perspective, part of it also is there's a realization of the value, but it is going to take time, especially in the types of industrial environments that I know we serve in our business. So from a journey perspective, we're on the path, and I think everyone has the shared vision of the long-term value and the short-term that we're getting out of these use cases. But there's huge potential in front of us, and Tony will share a bit more about that. Second thing is the ecosystem, which it probably goes without saying, but without the ecosystem being enabled, we're not going to get this done, right? IT leaders, connectivity and technology, OT and IT convergence. There is a necessity for partnership. There is a necessity for architectures to be standardized, for platforms to be standardized. And a key reason for that in our conversation just before we came on stage here is scalability. And I think scalability is a key part of the entire dialogue around this, because we have solutions and use cases, but we need to be able to transplant them and scale them from one location to another, one site to another. So I think scalability and within the ecosystem, enabling that scalability is critical. And lastly, we talked about value, and I had just come out of a panel that I was able to moderate, and actually Vodafone was on the panel, and it was around IoT for water. It's just one of the many, many examples. And I want to share that example with the group after the conversation Tony had, because what's interesting is we're all talking about the value in terms of efficiency, productivity, savings, value we can bring to our customers, better operations. But in a case like water, what's really interesting is the value we're going to get out of IoT long-term and the solutions that we're bringing, it actually means something even to humankind. Because for those who don't know, from a water perspective, it's a huge consumer of energy, number one. Number two, a significant portion, billions of people don't have access to clean drinking water. So this is it's a societal issue. There are critical things that we can do as industry and technology leaders to come together and bring solutions that are IoT enabled in areas like water, where if we can eliminate the waste, if we can improve the quality and the delivery, not only do utilities, just as other just as others benefit from a company perspective, but people are going to benefit too. So there's a huge story here around long-term value that we probably can't even put into words or into numbers. So with that, and thank you, Tony, for letting me share a little bit about the conversation we had. I want to share with you our next speaker, who's actually the global head of IoT sales, and he's really dedicated to ensuring that Vodafone's clients around the world fully capture these opportunities that I was just talking about and that we framed up together. And with more than 20 years of experience in the field, Vodafone's international team of actually 1,400 IoT experts, they can help companies with every stage of the transformation in IoT and enable business, whatever the size or wherever the company is operating. So I'm very pleased to announce and bring onto stage Mr. Tony Guerion, who's our global head of IoT sales at Vodafone.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you very much. We said 5 minutes. It's absolutely spot on.
Was it perfect? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Is the world connected? Well, I'm going to give you a fairly different answer, potentially, from what you've heard over the last couple of days, because the answer to the question is actually very different if you look at it from a European perspective, where you have mobile and broadband, and where you would think actually that things are connected. Now, if you look at the holistic IoT potential, the answer is most likely not. Because today we really only connect 1% of the potential of the world. And the question for me today is, how do we go at connecting the over 99% that we have? So today we are actually pretty good at connecting cars, at driving telematic services in your cars, at providing infotainments, at providing e-calls for the automotive industry. We're also doing a lot of work for the utilities, where we deliver connectivity and solution for the smart meters. We work with a lot of different verticals to actually help them do remote management. But still, this is very, very narrow when you look at the entire possibility. Think about the Internet of Nano Things. Think about the role of bio nano things. Think about what the Internet of Things really is. Think about Narrowband IoT and how you transform Internet of Things into Internet of Everything. The potential is huge, and what we've done really today is just scratch the surface. Now, the government in the US has been investing $22 billion over the last few years into nanotechnology, and with a goal to basically drive the different use cases in the market and the adoption. And that means many different things from a defense perspective, but also from a healthcare, for instance. Think about having real-time health diagnosis wherever you are in the world. But that is for the future. Let me try to focus a bit more on what we see in Vodafone IoT and where we think the market is actually going. What about IoT starting to dictate some of our day-to-day behavior that we have? All of us needs to go and buy some clothes, or at least I believe. And how is IoT actually going to influence our behavior in the future? What about having hangers with counters embedded into them, which gives you the number of people that have actually liked the design of a specific clothes? You can imagine that all of us would actually go on the website, on the social media networks, and decide whether we like this or not. And when you go to the shop, basically, you have a chance to either buy something that everybody likes, to be part of a social group, or actually look to be a bit different. Let me give you another example that Vodafone has been working on over the last year or so. We had a customer that came to us in Ireland, and Niall Austin is a farmer. And Niall's challenge is the following. He's been losing a lot of cows and calves because he was unable to basically assist them when they were giving birth. So what Niall really needed is a way to actually predict how and when the cow would actually give birth and get the data so that he could basically go and assist the cow. So after a number of months of R&D, Niall, Vodafone, and a number of partners in the hardware have come up with what we call the MooCall. And what the MooCall is a fairly simple device which you mount onto the tail of the cow, and by measuring how the cow and the tail is actually behaving, you have the ability to actually predict when the car is actually going to give birth. And so that device basically measures 600 data points by seconds to actually start to understand what the behavior of the car is. So if you couple that with features like geofencing, suddenly you have the ability to understand how the car actually is doing and understand where it is. And then using Vodafone network to actually get the data onto your phone and then trigger the whole process to actually assist the car. But let's hear from the customer himself.
I grew up on a farm. My dad grew up on this farm, and his dad was on the farm. So like, I don't know any different than to be on a farm and looking after livestock and cattle. Like, you know, I love it. When I was 10 years of age, my dad had me out handling cows, calving, just learning different things.
These guys are very attached to their animals. They care for them, and you know, obviously, the loss of a calf, or even in some cases a cow, can be significant emotionally as well as financially to the farmer. The idea behind Moocall was to offer a solution to farmers that was affordable and would take down mortality rates significantly. A cow's tail will move a specific way in labour. We have a very sophisticated algorithm that counts the contractions and ultimately sends a text message to the farmer approximately 1 hour before the calf is due to be born. Once we proved the concept that Moocall actually could predict a calving for a farmer, the next solution we needed was how we were going to get that information to the farmer. And that's where Vodafone came in. Quite simply, the device will now, through the IoT platform provided by Vodafone, send a text message directly to the farmer. There's no limit to the distance between our device and where the customer is. Vodafone give us a roaming capability to get our signal out in all signal situations. The Moocall gives a lot of benefits to the farmer. One, obviously, is he's going to save a calf generally once or twice a year with our device, because he's there to assist in a calving if necessary. They go to sleep soundly with the knowledge that we will come and wake them when the calving event is happening. So, you know, along with saving calves, which is very important, these guys get a lifestyle change where they have so much more time for themselves.
It gives you great peace of mind. If I think there's something wrong when I'm away, I can ring my dad, and he can come out and check them, you know, if he's not on the farm. Everybody will lose them one, whether they save it or don't save it, we've all done it. And I hate it. I absolutely detest losing that calf. Moocall to me, it could save one calf's life. You know, one calf, it could pay for itself in a year.
We're 13,000 sensors sold to date in 30 different countries, 9 different distribution agreements in countries in Europe, and just about to sign a big one in America. In every case so far, Vodafone has had an IoT platform in those jurisdictions that give us full coverage, so it makes our globalization of Moocall seamless. And you know, I'm very happy with what we've achieved, because we've obviously put a solution to the market which has given everyone real peace of mind on the farm.
Right. How many IoT events do you go to talking about cows? But I think what is actually interesting here is that with one device, you're actually able to cover up to 100 cattle. So there is a lot of reusability, and that delivers a real benefit to the farmers. But that is the good side of the story. What about all the things that we're actually not connecting today? What about that water meter in the basement of a building full of water that nobody can actually reach? What about the sensors lost in the middle of a field full of humidity, mud, and whatever that actually you can't reach again? Or think about all the different use cases that we are not able to actually build on because we don't have the technology, or more importantly, we don't understand the use case and the business case doesn't stack up. Because we see a lot of customers actually coming to us and asking, you know, how do I actually start my digitalization transformation journey? And the first thing that we really need to understand with them is what is the overall strategy? What is it that they really want to achieve? And whether actually there is a business profit for them. And today, the technology and the solutions that we have create a lot of limitation. But that was until LPWA, Low Power Wide Area Network, or Narrowband IoT for Vodafone. And that's what we call our chocolate candy bar for $5. And I will explain the analogy. But LPWA and Narrowband IoT more specifically is going to unleash the massive potential that we have in front of us. Why? Well, fairly straightforward answer. First of all, when we talk to our customers, one of the first issues that they have to face with is around the battery life of the device that they have in the field. By implementing low power wide area network, you're going to be able to have devices that will have a battery life that goes beyond 15 years. So no need to worry about whether the device will be able to actually transmit the data, track a behavior or whatever, because actually it will be on for the next 15 years. That's the first reason. The second reason is around the cost. The second stop that we have today, or break that we have today, is around the cost of the device or the modules when you look at 2G, 3G, or 4G from a pure connectivity standpoint. With Narrowband IoT, we are going to bring down that cost significantly. And that means being able to actually go sub $5 when it comes to the hardware. Now, that starts to address one of the main issues around the business case validity. The third thing is around penetration. I mentioned that water meter that you have in the middle of a field or in a sub-basement. Today we are actually unable to connect to it with the traditional technology that we have. And having a copper pair or whatever going to it for each of them actually doesn't make sense economically. With Narrowband IoT, you are increasing the dB penetration significantly up to 20 dB, which means that in a lot of places, actually you will be able to actually start to know what and how those water meters are actually behaving. And so for the utility market, it's a huge transformation because we don't need to have all those technicians necessarily available on stand to go and work on the outages that we face in the field. You will be able to actually monitor in real time how the water meter is actually doing. And the fourth benefit that we see, and which will drive Narrowband IoT adoption massively in the future, is around the ease of rollout. So I mentioned the cost of the module of the sensors, but the other thing is that it's actually extremely easy to actually deliver and roll out into a market. For a telco like Vodafone, it's actually just a software update. So we are basically able to turn on a country when and where we actually need it. So Narrowband IoT is really here to basically address the challenges that we've seen around the economics, around the availability of the service, both from a rollout and penetration standpoint, but also in terms of the sensor and the sort of portfolio and solutions that we can actually bring to the market. And there is something even more important, which is that the 3GPP, which is a working group in the GSMA, has actually standardized or validated the standard of Narrowband IoT in June of this year, which means that by now, this is actually a standard that delivers predictable outcome. And if you compare that with the other low power wide area network, this is actually a huge benefit. Now, Narrowband IoT on its own is actually not enough. We need more. And the first thing that we need is to make sure that Narrowband IoT actually works with the rest of the technologies that we have. So from a connectivity standpoint, from Vodafone, we need to make sure that we have a solution that both have fixed as well as wireless solution. What I mean by that is the ability to work with cellular, 2G, 3G, and 4G, but also Narrowband IoT, satellite, mobile broadband, the broadband or traditional broadband, whatever is actually needed to connect the different devices that we have in the field and in the market. And when you actually start to think about where Narrowband IoT plays, suddenly the potential is huge. And the picture here is here to actually give you a few examples. Think about that building. We probably have a lot of smoke detector everywhere. The last thing that you want from a smoke detector is to have it connected on Wi-Fi, because if there is a fire, if there is a electricity cut, you will not be able to actually transmit the alarm back to the back office. So having Narrowband IoT embedded into alarm detectors is going to be a huge potential for insurance companies, Think about what they can actually do with that. Think about what they can do by having chip sensors with Narrowband IoT embedded that they can put on Windows to actually deliver a new sort of cheaper security services. And again, what it means to the police insurance and to you and I when we actually have to buy a premium on an annual basis. What does it mean for the city? Everybody is talking about smart city, but what does it mean for waste management? Let's imagine that we have actually cheaper device in all the bins across Barcelona, and that therefore the municipality is actually able to manage waste and optimize when the waste is actually collected, what you do with that waste, and how many people you actually need to actually do all those tasks. What about the lighting? What about watering? The use cases for Narrowband IoT are absolutely unlimited, and the future is going to show that if you look at the curve of number of devices that will be connected in the future, a large proportion of these will be done through low power wide area network. Now, before I go towards the end of my presentation, in Vodafone IoT, we actually believe in transforming life and businesses, and that drives everything we actually do. We've got a customer in the US called Exobionic, which has produced the first truly exoskeleton device that you have on the picture here. And this is what they're doing. Basically, you have an increasing number of people suffering from stroke or from spinal cord issues, which means that they are basically paralyzed or unable to actually move the way they were able to before. And what Exobionic has basically been able to do here is to build a skeleton or exoskeleton which is mounted on the person's body with battery, and which basically helps them go back to a certain level of mobility. And that is huge when you go to rehabilitation, because the average number of steps that you do when you've suffered a stroke or when you are going through learning again a number of basic things is roughly 8 steps the first week. With Exobionic, you go up to 200, 300 steps in that very first week. So a huge increase, because when you've been paralyzed, it's like when you do sport. It's about repetition. It's about building back those muscles and making your body learn again how to actually behave. Now, you could ask me, what is the role of IoT and all that? Well, two things. The first thing is around understanding the data around the behavior and the person that is actually moving. So as the person is actually using the device, all the data are actually transmitted in real time to a back office, and that provides an interface for the physicians that understand how is the patient actually using the device, and where we can see progress, where there is stability, and how really the progress is actually coming. And the second thing that it does, because there is a lot of mechanics, as you can imagine, in those skeleton, is that it measures the battery. It measures the quality of the different joints that you have into the machine, and ensure that whenever someone actually wants to use one, it's actually ready to actually be utilized. Exobionic has 150 clinics in the US already using the device, and you need to see it in real time. This is extremely inspiring, and this is what we love to do in Vodafone IoT. So to conclude and to go back to Arthur's introduction, this is the early days. We've seen a tremendous demand for IoT services in Vodafone IoT, and we are working across a large number of verticals. However, what we have from a connectivity standpoint, and you would expect me to come and talk about connectivity working for Vodafone, it's good, but Narrowband IoT is going to unleash massively the power that we have and the potential that we have in front of us. And in the future, we're going to see a lot of those devices, things, all the things that we have around us starting to actually be connected. And the third thing is that actually working on connectivity is not enough. Arthur actually mentioned it in his introduction. We need to work and look at the entire ecosystem and make sure that all the different pieces of the value chain of the different vertical we want to work in are actually working together. And coming here in Barcelona is actually very, very inspiring to see how people are actually working together and pushing the ball and making IoT a reality. Thank you very much. Oops, I've just gone too far. So I think we've got literally 5 minutes for question, if any question. No question? Thank you very much.